Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. My name is Julian, and in today's episode, we're going to be talking about players that you can consider dropping ahead of week 7 of the fantasy hockey season. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and follow me on Twitter. I'm constantly putting out updates to try to help you guys as much as possible, help you guys win that week every single week. So without further ado, guys, let's jump right into the content. So starting off with some forwards, and first on the list is Alex Iafallo of the Los Angeles Kings. Dude was on an insane point streak recently, and now that's kind of come to an end. He's had a few games in a row where he's been pretty quiet. He's not an elite player like he played like for the past couple of weeks. He's just not. And now it looks like Victor Arvidsson is back, so he's probably going to be bumped off that top power play in exchange for Victor Arvidsson. And his line is just okay with Dano and Athanasiou, so I don't expect crazy great things for him for the rest of the season, but I don't absolutely hate him either, so he could definitely be owned in deep leagues, but I'm not owning him in 50% of leagues, that's for sure. On top of this, the Kings only have 2 games this upcoming week, so Iafallo is someone that you can drop just for schedule alone. Next is my MANSCAPED must-trim player of the video, Alexis Lafreniere. Get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code word FANTASYTIPPED. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code word FANTASYTIPPED at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence, guys, and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. Guys, the Christmas season is approaching very quickly, so get your holiday shopping done early this year at manscaped.com. Use my code word FANTASYTIPPED. You'll get 20% off, you'll get free shipping, and you'll get your holiday shopping done early. So why is Alexis Lafreniere my MANSCAPED must-trim player of the video? Well, it's quite simple. I've had this guy on my list for quite a few weeks now, and he's still 40% owned. This dude is playing on the third line. He's barely getting 10 minutes of ice time per night, and even with Sammy Blais gone for the year with an injury, they're still not even playing him on the top line with Zibanejad. I just don't like this guy's deployment. He's not getting top power play time, and he's just not producing to where he was supposed to be producing where he was drafted. Next is Joel Farabee of the Philadelphia Flyers, and he is a streaky player. He'll have periods where he's insanely hot and periods where he's insanely cold. Right now, he's in one of his super cold period. It's possible that right after I put this video out, he starts having a nice hot streak again. Sure, go ahead and ride him for that time, but for fantasy hockey, you want players who are consistent, guys who are not just going to sit in your team and do nothing for you for long periods of time. Those kind of players are not that valuable. If you want to hold Joel Farabee though for this week, Philadelphia does have 2 games on off nights, so I don't absolutely hate keeping Farabee for this week specifically, but if there are better options, you can definitely go and grab someone else instead of Farabee. Next is Brock Nelson of the New York Islanders, and if you guys think that Farabee is streaky, well, Brock Nelson is probably the streakiest player in hockey, because this dude will go off and score a hat trick one night, and then maybe score a point the next night, and then he'll go cold for many nights straight. That's the kind of player Brock Nelson is. He's not a consistent player. He plays on an okay second line in New York, and realistically, he's not someone that should be owned really in that many leagues just because he's not consistent. So Brock Nelson is someone I'm dropping, and this week the Islanders don't have that great of a schedule. They play on busy nights, so he's not really worth owning. And next is JT Compher, who's still 15% owned, and I'm dropping JT Compher. I know he's injured, but when he comes back, Nathan MacKinnon will be back. So Compher will be relegated to third line duties, and he doesn't have a whole lot of value being on the third line, so I'm going to be dropping JT Compher. Moving into some defensemen to drop now, and my first 2 guys on this list are by no means must-drop players. The first one is John Klingberg. The reason I don't love Klingberg right now is because he has no floor on any given night. His peripherals are terrible. He doesn't shoot a whole lot. He doesn't block a whole lot. He doesn't hit a whole lot. Therefore, his floor on any given night is actually negative because the dude goes negative plus minus quite often. So he has a very unstable, unsafe floor, but his ceiling is not bad. He still gets to play on the power play and could definitely put up a point or 2 on any given night. If that's good enough for you, that's fine. there are no better defensemen. Obviously, you're holding John Klingberg. I just don't love his not great floor. But if there are defensemen on your free agency that might be a better fit for your team, guys who are actually putting up peripherals like a Devon Toews, I would probably go and grab those guys over John Klingberg. Obviously, those guys would only be available in shallower leagues, and it's only shallower leagues that I'm dropping John Klingberg. Next is Jeff Petrie of the Montreal Canadiens, and it's the same kind of thing for him. His underlying stats suggest that he's actually been quite unlucky. His on-ice shooting percentage is only about 5%, so that can definitely go up, and his numbers should start coming at some point. But if you're in a shallow enough league where there's a couple of really good defensemen sitting around on the waiver wire, on the free agency, I'd probably consider dropping Petrie for one of those guys. Obviously, if you're in a deeper league, there's no way in hell I'm dropping Jeff Petrie just because the potential is there, the upside is there, and he could potentially break out at any moment. Next is Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers, and a lot of his upside came because he was playing with Darnell Nurse. I know the last couple games he wasn't, and that's why he hasn't been producing lately. And with Darnell Nurse out, I just don't really see the upside in Evan Bouchard. Edmonton Oilers' second power play unit doesn't really get that much time on ice, so I don't really see him getting that much of a boost being on this PP2. Even with Darnell Nurse out, he's been relegated to third pair defenseman, so I don't really see the appeal in him right now. If he starts getting a bigger workload, he starts getting first or second pairing, I might reconsider adding Evan Bouchard, but right now, his ice time is going down, and I don't really see the appeal for him. Next is Keith Yandle of the Philadelphia Flyers, and he's 26% owned, and he definitely has the potential to put up points. The dude is on power play 1 in Philadelphia. He's just not doing anything, and if he's not getting points, he's also not getting peripherals, so he's not super useful for you. So Yandle is someone I drop in pretty much every single league. At some point, if he starts putting up points again, he's someone that you can re-pick up, but right now he's just really not doing anything at all. Next is Matt Grzelcyk of the Boston Bruins, and the dude has 2 points on the entire season, and he scored them both in one game. So this guy's not scoring points at all. And his peripherals, while they're okay, he's just not worth owning in fantasy hockey. He's only playing power play 2. And in Boston, power play 2 doesn't really get a whole lot of opportunities. So he's just not someone who's worth owning in 21% of leagues. It just doesn't make sense, the ownership percentage for Grzelcyk. Moving on to some goalies to drop now, and first on the list is Philipp Grubauer. And no, I'm not dropping Grubauer in every single league format, but Grubauer has not been good this year, and that could be said about Seattle's defending and goaltending as a whole. It's been a disaster. And no, I'm not dropping Phil Grubauer in all leagues, especially if there's no other starting goalies available on your waiver wire, or like the only starting goalie available is like Wedgwood or something. Obviously, I'm holding on to Grubauer and hoping that things change. But in leagues where there's other potential starters available on your waiver wire, maybe someone like Jonathan Quick is available, I definitely consider dropping Grubauer for Jonathan Quick. He's having a fantastic season this year. Then the next two guys are Alex Nedeljkovic and Cal Peterson, and I'm not dropping these guys in all leagues again. But this week specifically, Detroit and LA only play 2 games apiece. That means that Nedeljkovic and Peterson are only going to get 1 start each because they split the starts 50-50. If you're in a league where there's other goalies available and goalies that'll get more starts this week, it might be worth, swapping them out for another goalie who's going to start more. Obviously, if you're in a league where there's no starting goalies available, you're absolutely hanging on to Nedeljkovic and Peterson. I'm just talking about shallower leagues where other goaltenders are available. You're not going to hold on to these guys for a week where they're only playing 1 game. Next is Eric Comrie, who's owned in 17% of leagues, which I can't wrap my head around. Yeah, when Hellbuck was out for a little bit, Comrie was absolutely fantastic in replacing him, but I don't think Comrie's going to start stealing starts away from Hellbuck. He's one of the best goalies in the league, and while Comrie's been a very good backup, he should still be relegated to pretty much exclusively back-to-back games. And then I have Chris Driedger, who a lot of people was like, oh, maybe he's going to steal the starting job away from Grubauer because Grubauer's been so bad. But guess what? Chris Driedger played the other night, and he did not look good at all. He led in 4 goals in 17 shots, so that really wasn't good at all. So clearly the problem isn't Grubauer, it's just the defending in general. The defense in Seattle is lacking, and they're leaving their goalies out to dry. So I think that Driedger is not worth owning in pretty much any leagues right now. He's a backup, will only play the back-to-back games, and even when he is called upon, he's letting in a crazy amount of goals. So why is he owned in 16% of leagues? I don't get it. So he's definitely someone to drop. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow me on Twitter @FantasyTipped, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.